Detoxing from the narcissist means doing a mental detox, because relationships with narcissists are based on enmeshment. So it becomes imperative to commit to clearing your mental space. It's an essential part of differentiation, individuating, and healing, because over time we become so fused with the narcissist to such a point that we no longer have our own thoughts, our own views. So it's no surprise that we become mentally unstable and emotionally dysregulated. And in this video, I'm just going to emphasize the importance of clearing your mental space. But I don't want to underestimate the importance of also doing psychic clearing, which is an even more subtle plane of awareness than the mental and emotional plane that some of you may or may not be aware of yet. Psychic hygiene is imperative to maintain when you're dealing with the topic of narcissism, let alone when engaging with someone you feel enmeshed with. It can very often be the reason why you are unable to sever ties or stop thinking about them, because you're bound in this intangible plane, which can influence your thinking habits. But this topic deserves a lot more attention in another video. Those of you who are sensitive or finely attuned to other people and to the environment will know exactly what I'm talking about. The mental plane is where all our thinking occurs. It's where we give meaning to things. It's where the narrative runs, where we worry, stress, ruminate, which then affects our emotions and the way we feel. So mastering the mental plane and recognizing that there are lower and higher aspects of your mind is important. The lower mind wants to control. It's competitive and entitled. That sounds like a narcissist, doesn't it? But does it not also describe the ego, including our own ego, which is also known as a lower mind? The higher mind sees potential, it's cooperative, wise, and the concept of ego is further divided into inferior and superior ego. But I'll discuss this in more detail in my Transcending Narcissism masterclasses, because becoming aware and understanding ourselves is an essential part of healing from narcissistic abuse. It becomes imperative that we do regular mental detoxes or fasts in order to silence the lower mind and become aware which aspect of our own mind are we functioning from. How are we perceiving the world and ourselves? So when I say detoxing from the narcissist, I include detoxing from the subject of narcissism itself, and that includes our own ego's narratives, which could be described as silencing our own inner narcissist. I think you'll agree that narcissists and emotional manipulators love messing with your mind. But once you're familiar with the workings of your own mind, you'll be able to recognize their invitations into these intentionally dysregulating mental games. The value of knowing thyself includes becoming familiar with how your lower mind invites your attention to focus on unproductive thoughts. And doing a mental detox means observing the workings of your mind. It means being able to discern what's yours and what's not, and be aware of how many thoughts are not your own. Do you question where some of those thoughts come from, or do you indiscriminately get pulled into narratives that are really not supportive to your mental health and inner well-being? It is important to try and understand the narcissist's mind and behavior, but it's even more imperative to understand the workings and patterns of your own mind, your own triggers, delusions, and projections. Too many people stay stuck, stay distracted, assuming that if they truly understand everything about this psycho-spiritual affliction, that they will find peace, healing, and resolution. But that is not so. We often become obsessive about the topic of narcissism and trying to understand them. And this becomes another pitfall, another roadblock to our complete healing. Before I begin this video, I just want to say thank you for everybody who's registered their interest in the masterclasses. And please accept my apologies, as I've experienced endless delays due to the catastrophic flooding we have experienced in Australia. I trust that everything is divinely orchestrated and will fall into place at the perfect time. So I really appreciate everyone's patience and understanding. There's particular habits of thinking that people who evidently show they might have a cluster B personality disorder that you need to be aware of, because it can be helpful to remind yourself or foresee so you don't reactively just feel you've fallen victim to their behavior, what they say or how they think. So remember what characterizes cluster B, and that is erratic, unpredictable, irregular, unstable, dramatic, impulsive, overly emotional. So when you're around these types of people, you tend to adopt their way of thinking, catastrophic, escalating, dramatizing, which for them might be normal, but for you will make you feel crazy. And so it should, because that type of thinking does not constitute normal, healthy, or balanced. Detoxifying your mind is part of gaining mental discipline. We can use thought and not get used by thought. We can silence the lower mind, which is based on fear and analysis, and become receptive to hearing the higher mind. And learning to manage your own mental state is absolutely essential, because you may physically set a boundary with an abuser, but if you don't do the inner work, which involves detoxifying your mind from all the rubbish and destructive looping thoughts that play out indiscriminately, the abuse will continue within your mind wherever you go. The ultimate goal is to maintain a firm connection to a sense of unshakable peace and stillness within, that no matter what happens in the external, you are at peace. Why is it important to mentally detox from the narcissist? The narcissist is an expert at luring you into this disorienting mental state, which zaps you, your energy, and your ability to focus. So you need to foresee this and nip it in the bud. To begin a mental detox, take baby steps. For example, for 1 hour, don't think about them. Don't think about the details of what was said or how frazzled you now feel. Maybe just have one term to generally describe and identify what's going on. Call it gaslighting and leave it at that. Notice that powerful energy that feels like a vortex that just wants to suck you into this mental space where you're scrambling to make sense of things, and then you're pulled in even deeper where you're ruminating. We've all had this experience hundreds of times, so use this as an opportunity to practice. You'll have a fraction of a second where you can pull your energy back, where you can set a mental boundary. It's not easy, but it does get easier. We need to teach ourselves to switch off mentally, whether it's a crazy-making conversation that you've just had, or whether a past memory has crept up on you and is enticing you into reliving that unpleasant scenario. And surely you must know by now, by all the experiences that you've had, that trying to make sense of this insanity is a recipe for insanity. Surely you know by now that every single time it's just more game playing, it's more crazy making. Because if a person wants to be clear and truthful with you, they will be. Not so with the narcissist. Their crazy making tactics are intentional, and they want to know that they are in your mental space, that you are constantly thinking about them. This validates how much power they have over you. If your mental health feels fragile, you must start qualifying the type of people you spend time with and converse with, engage with, and who you share your space with. Is it not just common sense to consider that if you spend time at the tip, you will eventually smell of rubbish? And perhaps if you spend time in a rose garden, you'll be infused with the aroma of roses. So don't leave your front door wide open to just anybody, especially if you still haven't learned to self-regulate your emotions, because you will be vulnerable to whatever someone else, like the narcissist, who wants to vent and dump for you to process for them. Change the channel, change the subject, redirect your mental focus onto a million other things that will surely make you feel better and bring about a peaceful mindset. Easier said than done. Yes, I know. But this is an essential part of mind training that you must do in order to survive and maintain your mental health. This skill is essential in order for you to heal and break any patterns related with the trauma of being in a relationship with a mentally deranged character like this, who thrives on creating chaos repeatedly in one way or another. You can simply start with just an hour and then challenge yourself to not thinking about them for a day, then extend it to a week, then a month. And of course, it's easier if you've already set a physical boundary. And I consider this imperative to remove yourself physically. But I do understand that some situations people can't. So in those cases, developing the skill of switching off mentally becomes even more essential in maintaining their well-being. You must set mental boundaries and have strict parameters of how long you allow this to continue in your own mind. Part of maturity means that we must hold ourselves accountable for what we allow in our mental space and how much time we marinate on things. You must realize that it is you that gives things meaning and importance. A really useful analogy is that of your thoughts being like guests wanting to come and visit at your house. If you had someone who was angry and abusive, would you invite them in again? Or perhaps they'd come in for 5 minutes and then you'd show them the door. It's similar to the types of thoughts that we allow in our mental space. And this is not easy because we're talking about trauma. This isn't just some unpleasant confrontation. We're talking about aggression, hostility, intensity, and that seething passive-aggressive mental energy directed at us. And with narcissistic abuse, this is chronic and ongoing and unpredictable. So initially, don't cause yourself more stress because it's difficult to stop thinking these things or replaying these scenarios. Just cease being interested in the drama, because it's the general disinterest that starts to give us those feelings of freedom from that narrative. What's been really helpful is to become passionately dispassionate about the drama. Your health and your sanity does not need to be at the mercy of anyone or anything. And that is the goal, to purify our mind and learn to see our mental space as a sacred area where we are free to think constructive thoughts and even hear wisdom from our higher mind, where we receive intuitive guidance. My new content, Transcending Narcissism, I'm going to go into details of how to better navigate the emotional and mental plane and offer you directions of how to rise from stressful and highly emotional mindsets to more neutral and peaceful ones that promote healing. It's a step-by-step guide from narcissism being the biggest issue in your life to it becoming a total non-issue. And learning to pay attention to things that you love, enjoy, and bring you peace. These things are always available to us, but when we've been conditioned to only and always react to their dramas, just like what's happening in the world right now, you need to know that you can learn to simply respond to whatever circumstances are presenting themselves and not be swayed mentally or emotionally, whichever way the wind blows, because then you feel vulnerable to your external circumstances. And I'm sure people will ask about how, because they've been in these highly volatile environments for so long. They believe it's normal. But we are being programmed to believe we are victims, that only if we resolve the argument with the narcissist, if only there's peace in the world, then we'll be able to feel peace. Yet this is an inversion. It's actually the other way around. We must become the peace, the love we wish to see in the world. And in those moments where you switch off from giving this subject or whatever drama, when you switch off and give it no attention, you starve it of your emotional energy, the issue will get smaller and you'll begin to sense that perhaps it is all about them getting your attention. That's what they crave, that's what they need. Controlling people depend on that, being the center of your life's orbit. Why not make something else the center of your orbit? Over the years, one of my favorite quotes has been, I can always choose peace over this. And that means over any of this, whether it's a conversation, a situation, because I care about myself, what I feed my mind. I guard my thoughts and protect the purity that's accumulating due to my own earnest devotion to creating more peace in my own mind, which is then reflected in my life. Drama queens are repelled by stoics. And a big part of emotional maturity is ceasing to blame someone else for how long you think about them. Do yourself a favor, give yourself a gift, and go on a mental detox and try it for yourself. There's so many people obsessed with all these diets, but so few disregard the importance of going on a mental diet that supports their mental well-being. It's like going to a smorgasbord and repeatedly choosing that off piece of fish that made you sick last time and the time before that and the time before that, and then complaining about how disgusting it is, how awful it makes you feel, but yet you keep choosing to consume it time and again, hoping that this time you won't get food poisoning from it, and not seeing anything else on the menu, totally disregarding everybody else, wisely avoiding that suspicious looking and smelling item. Yet you keep returning to it. I hope I've painted a vivid picture in your mind to help you understand how mentally ingesting certain topics can be detrimental to your health and to your life, and that you are, in fact, in control of that. So you get to choose whether you plant flowers or weeds in your mind. Tend to your garden discerningly. And remember, if you go back to the smorgasbord and try to explain to others or yourself as to why you couldn't maintain the necessary discipline, why you couldn't delete their number, why you had to read their email or text, I'm sorry to tell you, but most people don't care. The only ones who will have pity for you are others who are doing the same thing. And they bond over their shared failure to discipline their mind. Others who will support you in your own demise. It's like the blind leading the blind. These people are not supportive to you. You will not find solace in a herd headed for a cliff. Just stop and hold yourself accountable. Turn back. Try again. It's a practice. And anybody who truly cares about you will hold you to a higher standard. It's a skill that takes time to develop, but the inner peace you'll feel is the reward, and it's priceless. Your body will thank you for it. We each have the ability to control our mind, our focus, but it's whether we are ready to commit to maturity. And nobody can do this for you. So I invite you to learn to develop a zero tolerance for entertaining any drama. You do have the option of focusing on peace, on beauty, because that's always there for those with eyes to see it. Just remember, you don't have to buy whatever the narcissist is selling.